Hi, I'm Luis Moraes. I will present a study done in collaboration with Von Jansen, Nazareno Andrade, and Pierre Dragicevic. The study is about whether anthropographics can promote prosociality. But what's an anthropographic? By anthropographics, we mean visualizations showing data about people that are designed to promote feelings such as compassion or empathy, or behaviors like donating to a charity. This anthropographic from the New York Times, for example, shows the first 100,000 COVID-19 victims in the US. It represents each victim using a human silhouette. It also shows personal information about some victims to help readers empathize with them. There are many other examples of anthropographics, and there is currently a huge interest in this topic among practitioners. Design guidelines and strategies have been proposed to evoke empathy, such as using human-shaped marks, individualized marks, or even color. But other practitioners have questioned whether those strategies are really effective. Alberto Cairo, for example, is not convinced that visualizations can elicit empathy. Looking at past studies on the effectiveness of anthropographics, we have little evidence either way. Most studies are inconclusive, but there's a vast design space either unexplored. In particular, no study used a chart that conveys information about each individual. For example, in the study by Boy and colleagues, each icon represents a group of people and the names are invented. In the study by Liam and colleagues, icons represent individual people, but their identities and story are again imaginary. So, we ran a crowdsourced experiment that tries to address these and other limitations we saw in previous studies. This is a page from our study. It shows real data about migrants in Southeast Asia who suffered accidents or attacks in 2018. Each row describes an accident. People who died are in red. Those who survived are in light pink. Their sex and age group are also shown when the data was available. The chart also reports the nature and location of each incident. Participants had to scroll through the entire chart to see all the victims. They were then asked to decide how much hypothetical funds should be used to help migrants in Southeast Asia. Participants then saw a much simpler chart showing aggregated data, this time about migrants in Middle East. Then, they had to answer the same fund allocation question. There are clearly huge differences between the two designs we tested, but we wanted to make sure we could measure an effect before looking at what causes these effects. To cut and balance the effects of regions or presentation order, data from each region was conveyed through both visualization designs. So all participants first saw data about Southeast Asia, but half of them saw a statistical chart, while the other half saw an anthropographic. We used 3 ways to measure the tendency for people to allocate more money when they see the anthropographic design. As previous studies, our results were inconclusive. So, we decided to run a second experiment with several improvements, but most importantly, a much larger sample size of almost 800 participants. We used a similar donation allocation question, and this time we did find some evidence for an effect, but the effect was at best small. We also found that people reported more negative feelings when they saw the anthropographic. Our anthropographic design had a clear but modest effect on reported effect, and a small effect at best on money allocation. A small effect like this can be relevant for large donation campaigns, but it's very difficult to study in more depth because it requires a large sample size to be observed. The design space of anthropographics is huge, and some untested designs could have a much stronger effect on donations. But overall, our study and the studies before us call for some skepticism about the effectiveness of anthropographics. Other methods should definitely be tested, for example, observing donations on actual charity campaigns. Also, we need to better understand the effects of anthropographics on both effect and behavior. For more, please read our paper and visit our website, where we provide lots of additional material. Thank you.